Hi, I'm Shane, here with Erika.
Hi.
And so we'll be talking about Erika's recent shoot. First question is, how did you feel before the shoot? Were you nervous about anything, or what was that
Yeah,
like?
I mean, I was pretty nervous because I've never really done like nudity. I've always wanted to, and I've always wanted to like explore nude portraiture, but I'd never done it. So I was a little nervous because I was like, I don't know what to do with my body. A, and then B, like, it is a very vulnerable experience to just be like in like naked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was nervous, but excited. It wasn't like nervous, oh, why am I doing this? It was like nervous, like, okay, like, let's try something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And had you ever done Shibari before?
I had a friend like mess around with ropes on me, but it wasn't like as to the extent that we did in our shoot.
Okay, cool.
So I was familiar with it, but not like I was not a pro at it in any way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I guess, how did you get into a mindset before the shoot? Like, did you have to psych yourself up at all, or were you? We had a little process of meeting up beforehand and hanging out for a while before we got started.
Yeah, I think definitely like meeting with you before we even like got to shoot day was really like good because I just got to know you as a person, and I was like, okay, like not some creepy old man, so that was nice. And then I think like day of, it was more so like we eased into it. Like I was wearing a dress first, and then like it was like a very slow process in regards to like becoming full nude. And it was more like just like trusting that, honestly, just kind of blindly trusting that like whatever was coming up on the camera was going to be good, because like you've done this so much that like I felt like you could take care of that, like you could handle it.
Yeah. Was there a certain point where you started to feel confident? Because I noticed a point where your personality kind of like changed.
Yeah.
And like suddenly you're like, all right, like own it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it was like when you showed me, you were like, oh, look at you. And I was like, oh, look at me. So I think actually like seeing myself photographed definitely played into it. And I think like just made me feel like, oh, like it looks so beautiful already. It's like tiny on on like a screen that you're showing me. And it's not even like, it's not like I could see all the details, but it already looked so beautiful. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go for this.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like it was like, oh, okay, I can breathe into it now. Like I don't have to worry about like what I look like. Like that's what you're doing for me.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So,
yeah.
And so like I usually tell people like, don't worry about like, oh, what should I do with my hands? Because like realistically, if anyone's paying attention to your hands, like I've already failed.
Yeah.
And so I always try to get people to just like relax and just, have fun and move around. And, yeah, I think we got into a pretty good flow of that.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I was like more comfortable kind of transitioning and trying different things just based also off of like feedback. Like, you would stop me if like something looked visually good, and it like let me kind of cue into like, oh, like these shapes look good. So I like made a mental note for later, like, okay, like those are good shapes, I can use them again. Yeah. Oh, that's right, the actor in me though. I feel like the actor in me is like, must learn what director likes.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I like to do, like always encourage people to like think in terms of like extension, like extending your neck, or extending like your torso, creating like a space here, or extending along your back and kind of creating shapes that way. But for me, like a lot of it is, I try to just help the person feel cool and feel sexy, and then kind of get out of the way and like let them like I can give instruction. I kind of tailor it to each person. Some people need more, some people need less. But it's really like, I just want you to shine. And so when we got going with the rope tying, what was that like? How did it feel when it got started?
I like Shibari, so I was kind of excited about it. I was like, I'd seen it before, and I'd seen like really like decadent, pretty ones, you know. So I was excited about it. You know, obviously a little nervous, like you're being bound, so there's like like a sense of like, oh gosh, like my hands are gone now, you know. But I felt very like I was excited, and it like I felt safe. And you know, I was honestly excited to see like what shapes would come out of the ropes. Like I wanted to see the designs. I wanted to see how it looked on me. So what was going through my head was like, okay, like never done this before, but like super excited to see what comes out of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then as it went on, like what did it feel like? Like how would you describe the experience to someone who's, you know, never touched rope before?
Oh my gosh. I think at first it feels like a little, gosh, I hesitate to use this word because it sounds like bad, but like it feels a little scary, but I think it should, right? Like you're bound. It's very vulnerable to be like bound and like not have your hands, and you know they're behind you. So I think like that's kind of a natural instinct to have that moment of like, oh gosh. But like as that went on, I feel like I relaxed into it, and like at a certain point it was like, you know, the ropes were kind of holding me and very much like keeping me like like held, I guess is the best way to word it. Is like I was kind of like, okay, like this is, you know, I could actually like ease into it a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. I usually, like, the way I approach rope, or the way I like to think of rope, is more symbolic of an embrace and kind of more like, you know, like a loving hug versus like a controlling constriction kind of attitude. And so, and there is also like definitely an aspect of like, you know, losing control, and then there's kind of a feeling of, at least the times I've been tied, I've always had like a feeling of like, oh God, followed by like, okay, well, just gotta trust. But then it ends up kind of being like a really relaxing feeling.
Yeah. I would say that's accurate. Like I think it starts off with that like sort of build, and then you're just kind of like, oh, like this is nice.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to go?
yeah, it's fun.
So I think once you have that moment, and it like, you know, the initial like, I think mentally there's like a tiny shock of like, oh, like I can't move. That's weird. But then once that passes, it's like, oh, like this is actually kind of nice. Yeah. So
yeah, you know, it's a fun thing, and definitely not for everybody. Like our
probably
mutual friend, you know, not for her,
not
and that's okay.
Yeah. I think it's important to know like what you're okay with too. Like I was very clear like what I was okay with and what I wasn't with you, and you like allowed me to be very clear about it. So I think working with someone who at least like listens to you and hears you on that front is also really nice. So you know, but like that's what I would say to anyone like thinking about it, is like make sure the person that like you're gonna do it with listens to you and hears you and understands like what you're okay with and what you're not okay with.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, like I don't like surprises except for holidays and my birthday. Like I don't want any surprises. I want to know exactly what you're cool with, what you're not cool with, if you got an injury, you know, all that stuff. And so like, you know, it is important to have that kind of discussion beforehand.
100%,
yeah, and also, and you mentioned earlier, like we had a little conversation about when you have those boundaries set and clear, then it gives you a little bit more freedom to kind of relax into it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that when you establish boundaries and you like communicate clearly, it just opens up the possibilities in terms of creativity, because I feel like you feel free, and because you've sort of set this like foundation, you can sort of build on it and create what you want to create, because like there's already a knowing between you and whoever you're working with that like this is where I'm at, we can build from here, and then it ends up, I feel like, being even better because you're just free. You feel way more free, which is funny
you
because
trust
like
each other.
you're bound, but you're free.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it gives you that space of trust, you know, and like that's like, you know, even outside of Shibari, that's such a core part of, you know, this type of photography. You know, anything that's like, you know, it's pretty intimate.
Yeah.
But like when you have that foundation of like, okay, like this is what it's gonna be, you know, these are like the types of photos, you know, like then it's like, okay, like, you know, once I started showing you the pictures, you saw, okay, like he knows what he's doing. He's capturing the good side, you know, like, and like it just makes you feel a bit more confident, and so then you can kind of, you don't feel like you need to like hold back or be shy in the same way that maybe you would if you were, you know, working with someone who didn't have a lot of experience or something like that.
Yeah, someone who wouldn't maybe communicate as clearly, or even, you know, even the initial meeting beforehand I think is really helpful, because it's like, I feel like sometimes you sign up for like photography things and then you meet the person day of and it's just a go, you know, and it can be very like, you know, I'm an actor, so I've done like headshot situations like that where it's like, it doesn't feel super connected because like, I don't know the person.
Yeah. And that's actually part of my whole thing. Like I always meet with people before I do a shoot with them. And like I've found that the best photos from a shoot always happen at the end. Like, and I'm good. Like I know I'll get great photos from the very beginning, but like the photos that happen towards after like, you know, a couple hours when we've really had time to like hang out and like get into a groove and really develop rapport, and we're really like, you know, that trust is really deep. You know, it's in the eyes. It's, you know, makes the whole experience better, and it shows up in the pictures.
It does. Yeah, totally. I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
From our shoot.
yeah. And so afterwards, going through the photos, how did it feel seeing yourself?
Oh my gosh, I felt so hot. I felt A, very hot, and then B, like a piece of artwork, which I think was like what I wanted going into this, because like for me, wanting to explore nude photography, it wasn't like this, I need to be like a porn star and be erotic and be like, you know, turning everyone on. Not that I'm not doing them in these photos, because I think it might be. But I wanted something that felt like it was like a creation of like a, you know, I look at those photos and I'm like, that she looks like a, there's one photo where I was like, she's like a witch that's like, come hither and save me and I'll like, you know, I'll do whatever, you know, like it just felt very like, there's story involved in it, like, and I think that happens when you're producing something that is more than just like surface, you know, a girl tied up in, you know, in the nude. It felt like more when I looked at the photos.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you know, and that was an interesting thing you said about like this, you know, the feeling of a story. Like my shoots, sometimes we'll have like a narrative plan set up. Oftentimes I usually have something where it starts out clothed and then there's like a gradual transition to, you know, maybe lingerie, and then the ropes, just ropes by themselves, and then ropes plus flowers is kind of like a pathway almost. And yeah, no, it was super fun. I feel like the pictures were just awesome.
I loved all of them. I can't imagine what it was like to go through and like try to find like ones that you liked.
Oh man, it was brutal.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like there's probably more that are probably amazing. Just because like the ones that came out were just so good, so happy, and yeah, it was. I felt like very simply just like a piece of artwork, like I was painted or something.
Beautiful. Awesome. Great. Any other thoughts you'd like to share about the whole experience?
Like, I think that everyone should take photos of themselves naked at some point in their lives, because I feel like it's A, one of the most vulnerable things you can do, and B, like I think it really like allows you to appreciate yourself a little more. I think you don't have very kind eyes for yourself, but if you have a photographer that has kind eyes, you know, take photos of you, you're going to see yourself a little differently. You're going to see yourself literally through their lens, right?
Yeah.
So I think everyone should take photos like this.
Yeah.
And you know, but like I think that that's good for your self-esteem. It's like that Moira Rose quote from Schitt's Creek. I don't know if you watch Schitt's Creek or not. I'm a big Schitt's Creek fan.
What's the quote?
But Moira Rose says, I'm gonna butcher the full quote because it's kind of long, but she says, take 1,000 naked pictures of yourself. Take them all now while you're young, essentially, and then, you know, you may look at yourself now and think, no one wants to see these tiny boobies. But trust me, in, you know, 50 years, you'll look at yourself with much kinder eyes and you'll think, God, I was like a beautiful thing, right? Like I butchered the quote, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
The idea is like, you know, you're gonna look at yourself way more kindly once you're older, and like right now you don't see yourself the way you actually are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
That would be my last thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you. It was awesome. Great chatting with you again.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, and see you later.